What's up, guys? How are you? Performance bonuses. Nate Bernard and Austin Turpin, they both got $10,000. And fight of the night was AJ and Wolverine. They both got $10,000. And, you know, we had a hard time picking the bonuses. Aziel Rodriguez looked good. I'm going to take care of him, too. Who's got the first question?
Dana, when we spoke after Power Slap 2, you said that this is fun for you because after each one now is when you get to break things down and tweak and perfect and so on and so forth. Now that you're after your third one, where do you rate this? How happy are you with the production?
I love to build. I love to build brands. I love to build things from the ground up. I love to build things that people say can't be built. I like to break records. I like to do all that stuff. And you know, I was talking to a couple guys tonight. The production. My production team tonight knocked this thing out of the park. The production was incredible. When you watch this show, we should win awards for this show tonight. We'll never win a fucking award for this show ever, but we should win an award for this show tonight. The production was, quality of the show was incredible. Like when you watch, I won't throw anybody under the bus, but when you watch Showtime Boxing, and these guys are putting on events, fucking replays are terrible. The production quality is horrible. I mean, you're waiting for a replay. Replays never come. As soon as the slap is over, my team has 3 different fucking replays from 3 different angles. And the list goes on and on of the quality of production that we had tonight. So, and the reason I'm saying this is I'm not bragging. I'm commending my production team. They absolutely, you know, these guys, it's International Fight Week. We have all these things going on. You know, big UFC event tomorrow. And the production team that worked this event tonight absolutely killed it. I also want to commend the Athletic Commission. They are so on their game with this thing, fouls and, you know, everything's right. They're using the instant replay the way you're supposed to use instant replay. When you think about how instant replay should be used in sports, just Nevada State Athletic Commission, congratulations, amazing job on such a, you know, this is our third live event in Vegas, and they killed it. So I don't know if I answered your questions, but I hope I did. Yeah.
I've got a couple for you. You know, this is the third event you've put on, and even for me as a spectator, I noticed in the main event sort of different tactics, different skills that they're trying to use, and it's like you're seeing the sport evolve in real time. I'm curious if you, watching it, feel the same way.
100%, yeah. You know, part of you know, the scrutiny that we've had over the last 6 months, you know, it's awesome. I mean, you have to have this kind. I have to have this kind of stuff. I love this shit. And, you know, when me and my team look at, you know, dive in and start, how do you make this better? How are we better than the last time we were? You know, I don't know if you would try to excel to the level that we're trying to excel to without the critics and the scrutiny and all the things that come along with it. This thing is so identical to the UFC when we started. It's scary. Other than the fact that it's way more successful sooner than the UFC ever was. You know what I mean? I mean, the sponsorship is off the charts on this thing, and it just, tonight was a big night for us. So
every so often you get a match where, like, one guy fouls one guy, then they'll get fouled back, and it kind of sort of slows down into this foul-y sort of thing. Do you expect that to disappear as this sport gets further and further along?
Yes, and what happens is a lot of these guys are inexperienced. You know what I mean? Some of these guys are starting to, but there's going to be so much money involved in this thing. I mean, you guys just talked to the Crazy Hawaiian. He's like, this was something for me. Now I'm going to start taking this a lot more serious than I did. And you know, I was telling Kevin earlier, a few of these guys have already quit their jobs. You know, the Bell always wanted to buy a Mustang GT. He bought a Mustang GT after his last event. You know, and this is, we're 6 months into this thing. And, you know, the 2 guys that fought on the main event have made over $100,000 already this year. So, you know, this is real money. This is life-changing money for a lot of these guys. And the answer to your question is yes. This will happen. You know, there's a lot of inexperience going on right now, and that will all start to change over the next 6 months.
When you started this, I remember a bunch of us asked you, oh, were you ready to take on a whole nother job, a whole nother promotion? Are you ready to take on a whole nother roster of crazy guys who are going to get paid loads of money and go out into Vegas and cause mayhem?
Well, I got to give credit where credit is due. Frank is running this company and doing a phenomenal job. Erica over there in the corner is our matchmaker. and a lot of other people that are helping working on this. This isn't me doing everything myself. One thing that there aren't many things that I'm good at, but one thing I am good at is I've always been good at building good teams around me. I did it with the UFC. In the early days, I did it after the sale, and we're doing the same thing with Slap and other companies that we're running right now.
Two more quick ones from me. This might sound like a silly question, but it was something that occurred to me watching the main event. Is there any conversation about making these guys trim their beards? Or is it just like, if your opponent's got a bushy beard, you have to deal with it and find the chin?
No, you could not be more. First of all, I think Wolverine lost half his beard tonight. When you see that thing in slow motion, there's red hairs flying everywhere after each slap. And I would absolutely agree with you, because the first, AJ's good. AJ and Wolverine are two of the best in the world, right? They're two of the best, absolute best in the world. And I think that AJ had a hard time finding his chin in the first one. And Kevin, we go back to the old days of boxing. You weren't allowed to have a beard in boxing. You had to shave it. Now everybody's got a fucking beard. So I don't know. That's up to the commission, not me. But yes, I agree with you 100%.
And last one from me, you obviously announced John Jones versus Stipe Miocic today for the 30th anniversary card, massive heavyweight fight. What do you think it means to both of those guys, and why was this the fight to make?
What was the question? I'm sorry, I missed it.
You made John Jones versus
Stipe, yeah.
Big fight.
Yeah, so... Yeah, we're going back into Madison Square Garden. This is a fight that had to be done for, especially, when you think about the legacy of Jones, the legacy of Stipe, the greatest mixed martial artist of all time versus the greatest heavyweight of all time. After he moves up to heavyweight, it's a fight that had to happen, and no better place for it to happen than Madison Square Garden.
Dana over here.
Yep.
Congratulations on a great night.
Thank you.
Watching on TV is pretty exciting, but also being there in person is like mainlining adrenaline.
Right.
Is the key to this getting this in front of crowds? What's the contingency plan of getting this in front of crowds?
So in the next 2 years, if you look at how far this thing has come, some of you I've talked to personally, when I say shit public, you think I'm still fucking doing this 3 events and this thing isn't. This thing is a fucking juggernaut, okay? A juggernaut. And what we're working on right now is regulation. And we have a bunch of states lined up. In the next 2 years, half of the states that have commissions will have Power Slap. So right now, this thing is an invitation-only event that we're doing here. Tonight we had obviously a lot of media members here because of International Fight Week. Thank you for having an open mind and coming and checking it out. We had lots of sponsors here tonight, and sponsorship on this thing is going through the roof. Once we get it legalized, we're going to start taking this thing to different states for live events. But if this is our 3rd event, in the next 2 years, you're gonna start to see this thing move around a lot.
For educational purposes for people watching at home, does it come down, because the Ultimate Fighter was essentially a Trojan horse to educate people about the sport. Do you feel that, because there's a lot of technique that goes into it. Like, it reminds me of the technique that it takes to, do shot put, staying in the box, also mental, not flinching, keeping your hands behind your back. There's a lot of elements. There's a lot of tranches to this. Is it down to, because with the UFC also, you had about athletic commissions, politicians, fan backlash, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fans seem like the one thing, and the media seem like the one thing to get over. Is it just comes down to education and educating the MMA demographic and the general sports consumer?
Great question. And there's 2 answers to that question. Number 1, yes, some people need to be educated. Number 2, some people will never like this no matter what you do or what you say. Same with MMA. And if you even look at the UFC and how big this company is and what a major sport we are globally and everything else, we just got New York and France done not too long ago. You know what I mean? So when you look at this as new, this seems crazy to everybody. Same thing that we went through with the UFC. And I was saying this tonight to Kevin too. There's a lot of people that don't like this, right? They've been very vocal about it. We don't like it. Well, there's 8.5 billion people in the world, and there's a lot of people who do like it. So not everybody has to like this. I only need some of the people to like it, And yes, that's what we're going to continue to do. And I literally went into a deep dive with my analytical team this week and ripping social media numbers apart. This thing is very urban. This thing does unbelievable with the Mexican community. It's off the charts in India, and it's very fascinating as I start to dive into this thing and continue to study it and figure out how we're going to build this stuff. And I cannot explain to you enough how much I love this. This is what I love to do. This is the stuff that gets me up in the morning and fires me up. And, you know, I keep talking about Kevin because I can't fucking believe Kevin's here. But, you know, I was saying to Kevin when we did the first trial here, did I or did I not? I said, watch what I do with this thing in the next year. And here we are at the third event, and I'm going to tell you all now, watch what we do with this thing in the next 2 years.
Okay, so one more question. It might be a dumb question, so forgive me if it is. On Endeavor, obviously you have WWE, UFC, Power Slap under one umbrella. Is there the possibility of maybe crossover slap events? Maybe we have Elon Musk fighting Mark Zuckerberg in a slap contest. That would be awesome.
Well, it's a fascinating question, and it's hard to answer right now. But in the next couple months, I'll announce something with you guys that's happening right now. But yeah, a lot of people have a lot of ideas or think they know about how this whole mixing pot of companies work, and you don't. You have no idea how it works. But in the next couple of months, I'll enlighten you on some stuff. Now is not the time. Thank you, sir. Great questions.
Dana, I wanted to ask you one question really quickly. I saw Derek Stevens was here tonight.
Yep.
Did he like it, and is that something that you two could do business together?
Derek Stevens is a big sponsor. All the fighters stay at Circa, and he's been a bit. I mean, if you guys drive down the Strip today, literally every casino on the Strip and downtown has it on their signs. Every casino, restaurant, bar showed it tonight. So. In the beginning, in the early stages like this, it's about getting eyeballs on it. And Hooters, Twin Peaks, Dave & Buster's, PT's Pubs in Vegas. The list goes on and on of all the bars that showed it tonight, too. So,
You have deals with that?
huh?
You have deals with that?
Yeah. Yep.
Dana, you keep talking about the numbers. You're big on the numbers. The coin toss, that came out well in advance this time around as opposed to 1 and 2. How much did that play into like the betting numbers and so on? Did that have something to do with it? And what's the return then the feedback you're getting from the betting numbers?
Yeah, it's all about the betting. That's why we do it early, because that obviously affects the way people will bet on the sport. And that's the other thing. Another great question. If you look at every major casino had betting, all the offshore DraftKings had betting on it. I mean, what's the Noke boys? Rubed had it. Yeah. FanDuel. I mean, all the majors have gambling on this thing now. So the answer to that question is, hell yeah, it's doing good, or they wouldn't even bother with it. So, I mean, when you look at, talking about legitimacy early, we're doing everything that we did in the UFC. We're out getting this thing sanctioned. We're working with the Athletic Commission to make sure they do a great job. Everywhere that you possibly bet on it has odds on it. The production quality off the charts. The list goes on and on of all the things that we've worked on over the last, you're talking 6 months.
We saw the NFL owners agree to allow sports betting kiosks in stadiums. Is that something you would entertain down the road, possibly in events, and then maybe even with UFC where they could have kiosks and be able to bet? You could bet on your phone, obviously,
right.
But for people that wanted to bet in kiosks, is that something that you would entertain?
Probably the wrong guy for this question. I'm a sick degenerate. I love gambling, and yes, I would absolutely, positively. It's part of the fun of watching sports. Everybody bets on the games on Sunday, and you watch the games that you bet on. Same thing with fights, and I would do kiosks in a minute. Yes.
Over here. Dana,
Yep.
Is a super heavyweight title coming soon?
Yeah. We like the super heavyweights. They're fun, and in the UFC, super heavyweights never really made sense. But in this sport, there's a lot of guys out there that can actually be fun and exciting.
If there is a title for super heavyweights, what is the weight limit? Is it 265 plus against 400?
Yeah.
Would it be?
Yeah, these guys are what is it? It's 200 up, right? Yeah.
When you do get a live crowd, would you like Fridays to be the days because there's a lot of people in town?
Well, First of all, we did well tonight. We did really well with the live feed. Friday nights, you compete with everything, man. You compete with dinner on Friday nights. You know what I mean? You got to take your wife or your girl to dinner. I like Wednesdays, and Wednesdays are really good for the bars too. Friday night is good for bars tonight because we're like in the middle of baseball, and there's not a bunch of stuff you're competing with. But once you get into football season, you got college football, you got the NFL. Wednesday nights are a good night for us. Tonight worked out perfect because it's International Fight Week. All the stuff that's going on this week between the media that's in town, the fans that are in town, sponsors that are in town, it worked for this Friday. And tonight we pulled the most consistent, longest concurrent viewers that we did. We held the peak at like an hour and a half tonight. So it's just fucking. When you're building something from the ground up like we are here, and every little detail. Fucking 10 things can go wrong tomorrow night. They'll piss me off, right? We should have done it perfect or whatever. But none of you will notice, and it doesn't matter, and we'll do a fight another Saturday and whatever. 10 things go wrong when you're building something like this. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. So it's part of the fun of this too. You have to be on your game every single time you put on an event. Everything has to align, and you have to do everything perfectly. And there's a ton of pressure that comes with that, and I love it. I fucking feed off it. I eat it. I just can't tell you how much I love this shit, if you can't tell.
Dana.
But anyway.
Dana, from the early days of UFC, it was often compared to no holds barred. And when you think about the times of the struggle and everything, and considering the lessons that you learned along the way from where the UFC began to where it is now, what are some of those lessons that you're trying to apply to Slap and trying to take it to extents that it hasn't made before?
Well, like I said before, early on, we're focused on the things that matter. Good matchmaking so you get good fights, building talent, and then obviously live and television production. If you don't screw those things up, you're in good shape.
Dana,
yeah,
you're definitely adding fuel to the fire. We're seeing events more frequently. They announced Power Slap number 4 coming up on August 9th on Wednesday. Did you think it would happen this fast? And are you excited that, with everything that you have going on?
Yeah, we're getting to a point now where, we're actually starting to talk about, we got our legs under us now. We're getting this thing dialed in. Maybe we start doing more events. And so we're figuring out. But we got season 2 coming up of the reality show, which is going to be heavy international talent. And, the answer is yes.
Any update on the video game?
What?
Any update on the Slap video game?
Yeah, no, it's funny you asked that. I did get some information on that today. We're close to getting it done and getting it out. Yeah.
One last one. Obviously, in regards to medicals, I know there was some stuff with UFC and saving some of the lives of these fighters.
Right.
With the Slap fighters going through the same medicals as UFC, do you think it gives credibility to the actual sport itself or the medicals that you're doing since they're the same? Not
now. No, nobody gives a shit. But as we continue to do this, like the UFC, all the bad stuff that was said about the UFC early on, and I even hate saying this and talking about it or whatever, but here we are 23 years later with an incredible safety record in the UFC. So right now, you're going to get these doctors that want attention and these guys that come out and want you to fucking talk about them and put their names on your stories and all that bullshit. Those guys are all fucking flying around right now. In a few years, then it will mean something.
Dana, over just here. To follow up on that right here. Josiah Harrell got removed from the card today against Jack Della Mena because they found an abnormality with his brain scan. He's 7-0, and he's never had an MRI, he said, in his life. Like, how crazy is that on these regional circuits, people aren't getting checked out like that, and just how scary is that he came into this week with a condition like that?
So if you took the 23 years that we've been doing this, and you found, and you saw how many people we found with problems that probably shouldn't have been fighting, even kids that we found that wanted to get into the Ultimate Fighter, yeah, it's everything, and it's insane that this goes on out there, and these other organizations are regulated. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. We spend millions and millions of dollars on health and safety. It is the most important thing that we focus on and that we care about as far as putting on fights. And like he was just asking, these guys go through the same exact medical testing as UFC fighters do.
Is there anything that can be done in the sport as a whole? You know, a message maybe you can send to these lower level promotions on how to maybe better protect, or is it just a money thing that
they can't afford
don't have it?
They can't afford it. It's like even Logan Paul and I have had this conversation. Logan Paul was doing the slap thing before me. And he said to me, you know, a few weeks ago, he's like, brother, you killed it. You took it to, I said, well, listen, you weren't wrong. You were right. It's just, you couldn't pull this off. It would be impossible for some of these guys that are lower level promoters to do the level of testing that needs to be done to make sure that everybody is safe. But knock on wood, again, you know, a lot of bad things have happened in the sport in the last 23 years, even in the smaller shows. You know, at the end of the day, if you're involved in a combat sport, and I consider football a combat sport too, there's a risk. Every time you go out and compete, there's a risk. What we try to do is minimize the risk as much as possible. It was part of the reason we built the PI too. You know what I mean? We got these athletes in there for weeks, sometimes months, evaluating them, making sure they're good, making sure they're training properly, you know, healthy, safe, list goes on and on.
You mentioned the production of tonight's event, how proud of it you were. Does this need to stay here in the Apex to maintain that? Or
No.
if this goes as far as you want it to be, and maybe you look at arenas, things like that, is it possible to maintain that same thing in bigger venues?
100%. I mean, you look at what we do with the UFC. This show tonight has more cameras than the UFC does. There's like 34 ISOs, so I can give you 34 different shots of one slap. And it's all in slow-mo, and, you know, this thing is probably overproduced, but it's awesome.
And yesterday it was announced George St. Pierre is going to be coming back and competing here in the Fight Pass Invitational in a grappling match.
Yeah.
He said he's talked with you guys, maybe a few different opponents. Do you have an ideal opponent? A lot of people out there want to see him against Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Well, yeah, he was talking. I saw something where some fucking wrote a story about I lied to GSP and I probably lied to him. You know about this? No. About Khabib? So this was after they both retired, and he said, Dana called me and asked me if I wanted to fight Khabib, but he didn't have an okay from Khabib saying that he would fight. Well, you got to call somebody first, right?
Yes.
You got to call somebody first. I don't get them on fucking three-way calling and say, hey, guys, what's happening? Would you like to come out of retirement and fight each other? So George had been retired longer, so the question was, would George even consider, you know what I mean, fighting Khabib? He said yes. So then you talk to the other guy. But yeah, I thought that was a weird, and again, there's a lot lost in translation when George St. Pierre talks too. So maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but the way that I read it, he was saying he felt like he was kind of lied to or something, or that's the way they wrote the story. Who knows what he really said? But yeah, I thought that was weird today. But what are you asking me?
Could Khabib be GSP's opponent for this grappling match?
Got it. That would be awesome. I would love to pull that off. That's not in the works right now, but yeah, I would love to pull that off. So I'm getting heavily involved in the grappling world now too, if you haven't noticed. So we'll have a big announcement for all that too. But yeah, I'm going after the grappling world big time.
And just one more, Leon Edwards was doing some interviews at UFC X today, and he said he met with you guys, and Colby Covington fight could happen at Madison Square Garden in November, maybe the co-main event for Jones and Miocic. How far along is that? Yeah,
that could happen. There's a lot of options. I don't want to talk tonight about potential UFC shit. I mean, we could be here all fucking night talking about that, but yes, that is potential.
Hi, Dana.
Yeah, hi, Ben.
Every week or every event I ask you about the women, but I have a different question about the women. You mentioned all the analytics and stuff you're looking into. Have you found that women are receptive to even watching?
Yes, it's crazy. We had first of all, in the deep dive that we did into social media with my analytical team, skews higher in women than I would have ever imagined. Tonight there was a 2-star general here. His wife was here. And one of the things that I noticed when I talk to women is they get it. This doesn't need to be explained to them. You don't have to break it down like you do, you know, UFC or MMA or whatever you want to, any other combat sport you want to talk about. Women get it.
We get a lot of things.
Sure. No, I don't disagree, but you don't expect women to be, we're going to Vegas and we're going to a power slap event. Yeah, it's awesome. I love that they talked to a few women tonight.
So any update on any women on the next card?
Frank, they're coming. We're working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana over here.
Hey, Dana.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you about Austin Turpin and his performance. What do you make of that?
Is that dude a maniac?
Yeah.
He's a maniac.
What do you
He just quit his job. He's focusing full time now on this. And yeah, the kid's impressive. You look at him and you look at him and you look at the guys he's going up to against and you think he's in trouble. This kid's a powerhouse and he's an absolute lunatic.
And I also wanted to ask you about the co-main event between the crazy Hawaiian and Micah. I know you were pretty excited about that one, 400 pounds versus 400 pounds. Were you slightly disappointed we didn't get to see a finish in that one?
Hey, listen, every fight can't be a finish. I told him that when he just walked out. He's like, I wanted to finish. Every fight isn't a finish, kid. It doesn't work that way. But like I said, he said, I'm going to start taking this serious now, man. This was something tonight. This was a different level. This was more than I expected. And he saw his brother fight. So I think what happens is with a lot of these kids, we treat all, whether you're in the UFC, you're here, you show up, you feel like a professional athlete. You know what I mean? You're treated like a professional athlete. And I think that's what they walk away with after this experience. And we've heard it from a lot of the fighters. They're starting to take this serious now. A lot of guys are quitting their jobs and looking at doing this full time.
And back to the light heavyweights. After tonight, would Wolverine versus Turpin be something you're interested in?
Is what?
Wolverine versus Austin Turpin, something you'd be interested in?
Holy shit, this is turning into a UFC press conference now. I don't know, brother. I don't know. I'll get back in the matchmaking room on Tuesday and we'll figure it out.
Thank you.
That's my patented answer for everything.
Hey, Dana, follow up on what was mentioned earlier. You had mentioned earlier in the press conference how the belt finally got to buy a car.
Yeah.
And when you have stories like Jens Pulver talking at the Hall of Fame inductions about how MMA saved his life, when you facilitate and are in charge of many of these great organizations, for you, how does that human aspect remind you of what this is all about?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because when I was earlier talking about the negativity that was surrounding Power Slap, when you dive in and you start to talk to some of these people, and you realize how it changes their lives and how this impacts their families, and it's easy to sit on your fucking high stool or wherever you're coming from, or you just don't understand the sport, or maybe you're just not a fan of there's some people out there that don't even think heading should be allowed in soccer and stuff like that. But a lot of these people that are involved in combat sports, boxing, kickboxing, the list goes on and on, right down to slap. You don't understand where they come from and what they've seen and what they've been through, and how something like this could change and impact not only their lives but their families. Yeah, it changes your perspective on it, hopefully.
For you, when you go down to the T of the production, the people that you hire in the front office, everyone in sports are very focused on the dollars and trying to make the most money. For you, how important is it to make sure that everyone understands the concept of it's more than a game, it's more than just a fight, and it's about the human aspect?
Yeah, I mean, we try to do that. I mean, a lot of what we do here in the UFC and here is try to do some storytelling and let you know who these people are and understand them. But I don't know if it reaches anybody, because at the end of the day, there has to be why. Why are we here tonight? Why are these two guys slapping? For what? What does it mean? What's the goal here? And we talked tonight about rankings. A few of these fights, Erica was telling me tonight, had title implications and things like that. So those are the stories that we try to tell, along with who are they, where do they come from, and why should you care about them?
Hey, Dana, over here. Last time at Power Slap 2, you said there was 20,000 applicants looking to come in and slap. Has that number increased, and any UFC fighters showing interest in coming over here and slapping?
Macy Barber was talking to me about it tonight. I don't know if she's serious, but yeah, who as this thing continues to grow, and at the end of the day, the reality is the more money that comes into the sport, the bigger it gets, and the more people that'll be looking for opportunities. But yeah, I think that you will see it. But the balls that you have to hold that pad behind your back and take a slap from another person is another level.
Are you excited to have KO Chris back? Is he going to?
Very. I love that kid. He's a maniac, but I really like the kid a lot. And obviously he's super powerful, and he's fun to watch. And yeah, I'm excited to have him back.
Fans were disappointed last night that Anderson Silva was not in attendance for the Hall of Fame. Do you know why he was not there?
That Anderson wasn't what?
That Anderson Silva was not at the Hall of Fame last night. Do you know why?
No, I don't know.
And then finally, how real is Zuckerberg versus Musk? Because now we're hearing that like Musk's mom doesn't want him to fight. Like, how real is this thing?
It's very real. It's very real.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks for coming, you guys. I appreciate it.